Frank's Scuba Diving Career Advice by Pacificklaus. Hello everybody, now for something completely different today. So I will give you Frank's Scuba Diving Career Advice. Now let me just point out, this is not a change of direction in the channel. There will be more underwater footage from the Philippines in the coming weeks and a lot of it next year. But a viewer of my channel, thanks China, suggested that I make this little series telling people what to expect and what not to expect when becoming a dive pro. And I can give frank advice because I'm not selling you anything. I'm not selling instructor training or anything like that. I just share my experiences. So just to briefly introduce myself, what are my experiences? I've been a scuba instructor for 10 years. I have taught scuba diving in Australia and in the Philippines. I have briefly managed dive shops, sometimes with more, sometimes with less support by the owners. I've taught up to the level of technical diving, and I had been a staff instructor, meaning that I can teach other new scuba instructors, although I'm not rated at this level anymore. I gave that up. Now I will have a brief series here, and today I will just tell you, should you even do it? Is it a good idea? Do you want to become a dive pro, a scuba instructor? And then there will be brief videos in the next couple of weeks, actually one per week, explaining how about being a dive master, the interesting things to know when becoming an instructor. Then should you start your own dive shop maybe? And I will talk about volunteering, which is somewhat related. There are lots of opportunities in scuba to volunteer. And so, should you do it? Now, let me again give a brief introduction to how I became a scuba instructor. So I started scuba diving in 1987, and that's not because I'm so old, but because I started really young as a teenager. I guess I'm still somewhat old. And the thing is, then by 2014 I was already an instructor, and at that point I did that for the challenge, and because just I really love diving and I wanted to pass on the knowledge. I was also, my main job at that time was that I was a university researcher, and while I met a lot of cool people and I got to do a lot of interesting science, academia, life in universities is increasingly becoming a precarious work, and unless you're a star professor. And so I had this fixed length contract, relatively short-term contracts. I had a 3-year contract, and the university, despite me doing a lot of really well-published science, decided not to extend my contract. So then I had the chance, the option of, struggling, fighting more in academia, doing university politics to get a new job, or alternatively, I could do something new. And I decided to do something new, to become, for a while at least, a full-time scuba instructor. I'm not working as a full-time scuba instructor anymore. At this point, it is a interesting hobby for me. And now there were 3 things really, which at this point, were useful for me, factors in my life, and there was probably one factor which I probably wasn't quite as aware as I should have been. Now, what happened is, at that point I had, no wife or girlfriend, I didn't have any children, and I didn't have a house, or particularly I didn't have a house which I had to pay off still. There was a mortgage. So I was personally and financially very independent. And so that allowed it to me to take that change in career. And it's probably complicated if you have kids in school and if you're paying off a house to then move to another country and to teach scuba. So, this is definitely a factor. You either have to be at that position in your life, or you have to be very young, like in your 20s, so where you typically wouldn't have a family and a house to pay off yet. And so that worked out really well. Another factor I should mention is that if you want to take that step and become a dive pro, you need to be a good diver, and you need to be reasonably fit to be able to do 2 or 3 dives a day. Now should be a given, but I will get to that in one of the next parts of this mini-series. I have run across people who started their instructor training and then they quit after 2 days because it was just too exhausting for them to be in the pool and do dive training all day. So, if you don't have a sufficient amount of diving experience, it's probably also not going to work. So this is number 2. And then I should point out, and this is probably something I really learned more along the way, that very often, just like academia, which I left at that point 10 years ago, diving provides precarious employment. So you might be lucky, you might be well off enough to start your own dive shop, or you might be very lucky, to get a long-term job in a really good dive shop. But very often you have these short-term contracts, or, and this is something that actually hasn't happened to me, but to a lot of my friends, the people who run the dive shops promise a permanent position, but then fire the instructors after the peak season. And so in many ways, this is you will have to be working very hard, and you will have to be somewhat lucky to actually make a career of this. Can you have good fun for a year when you're in your gap year and you're teaching scuba? Yes, but it's tricky to have a long-term permanent career with scuba. This is something to point out. So please let me know if there is something you would particularly like me to cover. I'm just in the process of recording these episodes now. Leave some comments below here. As usual, please support the channel. Check out my other videos where they're mostly small critters from the fantastic muck diving capital of the Philippines, from Darwin. So check that out. Like, subscribe, share on your social media, and hope to see you soon. As I said, next time I'll cover being a dive master, being an instructor, starting your own dive shop, even though I haven't done that, but I've made a lot of observations, and then I will cover volunteering in scuba diving. So have a great day and see you soon.